This is going to be a long video, so timestamp down below. I'm going to bring in one of my favorites, geopolitical economist, Professor Lu, here again and talk about his most recent prediction, what United States might do around the world, okay? It is crazy, but in a way it also makes sense somewhat. This video will be divided into two parts. The first part, I'm going to talk a little bit about Chinese history. I know many of my audience are interested in. And if you're not, you can jump straight to the second part, in which Professor Lu will be making some very interesting dramatic prediction for Trump 2025 and 2026. Oh, before I go into my main content today, when I present and translate a Chinese guest here on my channel, it doesn't always mean that I agree with him and what he said, okay? However, because of Mr. Lu's experience and background in global finance and also state management, he can see problems a country will face, not might face, will face years before the problem actually arrive and surface. But neither he or I or many other Chinese economists can foresee exactly what solution a country like US might conjure up to solve those problems. For example, okay, he and few other Chinese economists all saw the problem US might face with massive quantitative easing after pandemic. They know that US dollar would face problem. They just didn't know that US would provoke a war in Ukraine to ride past that bump. Same with today's video. He can see severe problems US economy will face within 3 to 4 years, and US leaders need to start finding solutions to those problems years ahead, not when it arrives. We just don't know what dramatic decision US might decide this time, so that's all I can say. This is going to be a roller coaster ride. Let's go. China has 5,000 years of history. History are often not random events. They're the most valuable treasure to us Chinese people, because a long, vibrant history is the foundation of a great nation's grand wisdom. When we look at the things happening around the world, we often reflect upon ourselves and our own history to seek explanation and guidance. When people like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Scott Bessent, and Tracy Gabbard entered the US political arena at a turning point of human history, it makes us wonder, what will they do? I think the problem facing United States today might be similar to what some of the states in China facing during warring state era. If leadership in the United States can solve the problems facing America today, United States will be invincible for many years to come. If these people fail, however, United States might fall into an irreversible downward spiral. The challenge facing the US empire today is enormous. History is like a spinning wheel. The core characteristic didn't change much. Let's look at the problems facing the United States today. What is going through their ruling elite's mind? And what are the potential strategies they might apply? The United States of America has been around for over 200 years now, a bit less than 300 years. It is facing a similar fate that many dynasties and empires face in human history when they enter their last stage of decline. The symptoms of a late-stage empire is all there, both internally and externally. These symptoms include private entities and capitals hijacking political decision-making bodies, wealth condensation into small group of people, including land, driving wealth inequality. The middle class, who enjoyed high standard of living and freedom, are now being turned into bond laborers. So we are talking about the relationship between an upper class, the rent-seeking class, and a bottom class, the servant class. I think many Americans can see that happening in front of their eyes. In addition, we're also witnessing the collapse of US military capability around the world. If things don't change within 5 years, US military will not be able to challenge even a medium-sized country, not to say against any large major powers such as China and Russia. The US debt is increasing at an accelerating pace, and US dollar strength is also diminishing at a substantial rate. So a US empire no longer able to back by the strength of US military or the strength of US dollar will experience the final stage of economic and political collapse. This is what the US is facing today. Of course, I believe the politicians and leaders in US is trying to rescue the situation. They want to reverse the fate of the US empire. But my audience have to know that in the entire human history, there are very few leaders who are capable of reversing the fate of a collapsing empire. So let us witness what is about to come. Let us witness these people who take the center stage of the US political arena. Are they capable of creating a miracle or not? Let me set the tone for today's video. The competition between Republicans and Democrats, between Trump and Biden-Harris, between so-called Trump and the establishment. It is not a conflict between working class and the wealthy oligarchy class. I do not even consider it to be a battle between revolutionaries and conservatives. I like to describe it as the infighting among two separate groups within the existing establishment. Because of this unique character, the adjustments they are capable of making is very limited. So do not mistake this as Trump leading a bunch of lower and middle class citizens to revolt against the wealthy elites. You have to understand that all Trump's backers are protecting the capitalist core of the United States. They are the two sides of the same coin. Maybe there's another way to describe this more clearly. This is a battle between new money and old money. Of course, when I say capitalist or wealthy oligarchy class, you have to understand these are also human beings, valid, intelligent people. These people who are about to enter the White House have a different vision of the United States compared to the existing establishment. In Chinese history, we can maybe refer to this process US might be going through as the Shang revolts. Okay, I need to pause here for a minute. I know my audience in my channel love to learn Chinese history. Let me give you guys a quick summary of Shang revolt. Okay, this happened during late stage Warring States era, around 365 BC. As a reference, okay, the great philosopher Aristotle celebrated his 19th-year-old birthday that year. Okay, it's a long time ago. I think I might make a separate video in the future in talking about, Warring State era in China. It is quite unique, not just in Chinese history, but in the entire human history, I would say. Let me give you guys a few examples. Okay, we're talking about at that era, multiple warlord states fighting among each other, with battles often exceed 300,000 men. 300,000 men. One of the battle between Zhao and Qin exceeded 1 million men. And at the end, 500,000 soldiers were killed or executed. Very brutal, okay? And that happened in 260 BC, so 100 years after the Shang revolt. Shang was a statesman of the Warring State era, served the state Qing during the 4th century BC. At that time, Qin was considered a relatively weak state among the 7 major warring states in ancient China. To transform Qin into a powerful, centralized state capable of dominating its rival, Shang proposed and implemented a series of radical reforms, okay, emphasizing on strict laws and centralized authority. So this is what he did, okay? He abolished the feudal system You can see today's United States also as a kind of maybe corporal techno feudalism. Many other people refer to as what is going on around the world today as well. He also implemented centralized administration, so bringing power back into the White House. Legal and penal reform, apply military meritocracy. I guess that referred to the United States military, which also require a huge reform and cleanup of corruption, for example. And then there's culture standardization. Oh, okay, Shang did that as well. It seems like Trump is doing that as well. There will be only two genders, okay? Male and female, and nothing else. And there's also different kind of economic incentive as well. So to make it short, it is to condense power and change the direction of the country. So comparing that to a Western history angle, maybe you can consider Shang as someone like von Bismarck and his reform. I would say, yeah, something like that, okay? So Shang reform was a huge success and transformed Qing into a very, very powerful state and ended up defeating all the other warring states and unify China for the first time. But unfortunately, Shang himself didn't end up too good. When the emperor who backed him died, the old establishment power seized the opportunity and accused him of treason and brutally executed him. But his reform largely remained intact. Is that going to be the fate of Musk and Trump? I don't know. So our unique Musk here need to be very careful. People who disturb, okay, the balance of power structure need to prepare to suffer severe backlashes and consequences. That's often the price of political reform. Anywhere, everywhere in the history, no matter where you are on this planet, it's all the same thing. Political reform is always dangerous. But again, like what US is going through today, the Shang reform was a reform launched within the ruling establishment elite, not a revolution from the working peasant class. So this is what Professor Lu is referring to. Okay, let's continue. If Trump 2.0 is serious, that Trump and his team want to change the fate of the US empire. Okay, I need to explain this again, just so people do not get confused. Professor Lu here, and also me as well, is saying that what United States might need to do if we want to continue as a form of global empire, okay? Many of my audience do not want the United States to continue as a form of global empire. That's why many of you guys consider what Trump will do or might consider doing is bad all the same, okay? But I always encourage my audience to take a more neutral approach, a more three-dimensional approach to geopolitics, okay? In fact, after the Shang revolt, Qing dynasty successfully conquered the other warring states and conducted one of the most brutal ethnic cleansing in human history. From the perspective of those other states at that time, the success of Shang reform is apocalyptic to their survival, but that's human history. Trump and his team is here to continue the US domination on this planet as an empire, okay? Nothing has changed in that way. What some of my audience might want is to see the US empire's demise. I totally get that, just like what I explained. So this video is not about whether US should be an empire or not, it's just how these people trying to save and rescue the situation. And I also know that why people who do not care that much about geopolitics also do not see US as a global empire. But if you pay attention recently, okay, to geopolitics, especially after the Ukraine war, we're 3 years into the Ukraine war right now, the global tension, I mean, just look at what Trump said, okay? He said, what? Something like if any country who back or support a new global currency, he's gonna put 100% tariff on them or something like that. If you still cannot see US as a global empire, financial empire, quite aggressive militarily as well, geopolitics might not be your cup of tea. That's all I can say. Let's continue here. If you watch Elon Musk's podcast during the Trump campaign, the things he said, the things he aimed to do, it actually is very similar to what Shang wants to achieve during his reform. Musk wants to reform and abolish a huge portion of the federal bureaucracy, including challenging some of the core interests of the military-industrial complex. If he succeeds, this will shatter the entire current establishment system. We're talking about a huge oligarchy class that is hiding behind this current establishment system, especially the pharmaceutical and military sector. However, can Elon Musk and his new department, DOGE, achieve his goal? I honestly do not think he can, but I believe his intention was different to begin with. And what Musk said in public is a distraction for his real intention, or perhaps it is a leverage. It is a bargaining tool to be used in negotiation when dealing with the current establishment. The old money oligarchy class, that is. To break apart and maybe get the current establishment in line with the new leadership. The real deal, according to me, lies with Tracy Garber and Scott Besson. Let's talk about Scott here. Scott Besson is a homosexual. Okay, I need to modify this part because I don't think I will get past YouTube censorship and regulations. Let's jump forward here. Scott Besson is extremely intelligent and capable. People are confused regarding George Soros' monetary attack against the world, including his famous campaign against the British pound in 1997. It wasn't George Soros that was the main accomplice. It was Scott. George Soros was made famous because of Scott Besson, not the other way around. Scott's capability is beyond many people's imagination. He has deep philosophical understanding of monetary currency and financial system. And not only that, he has real-life combat experience when it comes to financial warfare. He's a genius. But no one is perfect. Everyone has his flaw. Because people like Besson, who are extremely capable and self-confident, are also not keen on concealing his move and intention. So when Scott Besson entered the Trump cabinet, we can be sure that Trump's ultimate backer is still the same force, because Scott Besson is one of the most powerful champions of the establishment deep state. So to me, Scott is the real gladiator of Trump 2.0, not Elon Musk. To me, Scott is one of the most important members of Trump's cabinet. He will be responsible in keeping the US empire alive. Okay, to me, Scott Besson is more dangerous than Victoria Nuland, okay? Not much more dangerous, I would say. But let's see what Professor Lu has to say about him and his new policy. Well, his potential new policy, okay? This is the core part of this video. Scott Besson stated 3 goals. Listen very carefully now, my fellow intelligent audience. Do not blink, okay? Here we go. First goal, federal government budget deficit need to stay within 3%. Second goal, GDP increase need to be above 3%. The third goal, crude oil production in United States need to increase by 3 million barrels per day. Okay, pause here for a second. It's very important to understand the driving force behind geopolitical decisions, especially when it comes to the United States, okay? Do you know what increasing 3 million barrels of crude oil production in the United States implies? Ring any bells? No? Provoking the Ukraine war actually carried the same fundamental principle, the same purpose, I'll say. But let's see how Professor Lu explained this, okay? Skull is an extremely capable warrior, but he shouldn't have stated those goals so early. What he said should be a warning signal to every country's leader on this planet. Skull Bison's stated goal already light up the path for Donald Trump's second term, Trump 2.0, and what he is about to do. I think my Chinese audience can be temporarily relieved because of what Skull said, because it signals a shift of focus away from China, just so slightly, and that it is less likely for US to provoke a proxy war around China. Okay, let me explain. To make America great again, there's three things that the United States and its leadership need to avoid. First thing, to avoid the collapse of the US military. So the strength of the US military, or the illusion of the strength of the US military, need to be maintained, okay? The second thing, the US dollar cannot collapse. The third thing, the US capital market cannot collapse. So to prevent the US military from collapsing, US need to go through a major military reform. From my understanding, today's US military is only capable of conducting military operation at a battalion level, and is not able to challenge major power in any conventional warfare at a large scale. Of course, US combat tactic and intelligence network is still the best in the world, but when it comes to conventional ground forces, Navy, Air Force, it is falling behind. Yes, it still has upper hand against maybe a small, medium-sized country, but against a major power in conventional warfare, US Army has little chance to no chance. And if the problem continues for another 5 years, US won't be able to challenge even medium-sized country around the planet. What the US Army is capable of is best tactic, is special force and covert operation, assassination, those kind of things. But when it comes to large-scale warfare, like in Ukraine, US is not capable of handling that anymore. So this is a serious problem. The US Army cannot collapse. It is a basic requirement for running a global hegemonic empire, okay? The US has over time privatized part of its military army, but this private army's combat capability might not even match the Wagner Group of Russia, and its loyalty might also be questioned as well. Its military force has been privatized and is kind of in a very bad condition. Okay, this is why you also see many news about corruption in Chinese army today. Okay, this is actually a healthy sign, I would say, because Chinese army is going through accelerated, serious transformation and you need to clean out those corruptions. If you want to go to war, you cannot have a heavily, corrupted army, right? To be able to be combat effective, you need to dig out all those, bad seed. Corruption is also very severe in the entire US military system today, but the difficulty of fixing the problem is much higher than that of China. I talked about this before. It's here in US, it's the entire business model. Okay, the military is bound too closely with the oligarchy system in multiple sectors. So it's difficult to break that, corruption apart. Now, on to the problem with US dollar. To fix the stress on the US dollar, it must solve the debt crisis, the issue of budget deficit. To me, 40 trillion of federal debt is an important benchmark, a breaking point. After that, the US dollar might risk severe collapse. Of course, we are not exactly talking about US dollar collapse against other currency, but it will be shown in its value against, let's say, Bitcoin or gold or some other important asset class. This is also a vital issue and cannot be delayed. US need to start fixing the problem in 2025, and it needs to see clear result in 2026. And finally, the US capital market cannot collapse because it's a major pillar of the US empire. In order to avoid collapse of the capital market, US must achieve certain degree of reindustrialization, because right now the US capital market is the one of the only pillar left, backing the US dollar itself. Okay, now let me give you guys my prediction. When it comes to controlling the US debt, according to Scout, he needs to limit the federal deficit to around $1 trillion in the fiscal year of 2025. This is close to an impossible task. From my calculation, US debt total is going to reach 40 trillion by the end of third quarter 2025. Because if we are talking about massively reduced federal spending, I do not think Elon Musk can achieve the task. This is because the US federal government cannot increase revenue enough to cover the deficit in time. And if you want to go after state revenue, you need to militarize the entire country. That's also close to impossible. And I do not suggest US doing that. When it comes to increasing the GDP by 3% annually, that can be achieved, yes. I think given the capability of Scout, he can achieve such results by maintaining an above 6% capital accumulation rate. Now, let's talk about the 3 million barrel of oil production increase per day here in the United States. This is one of the biggest hints of Trump 2.0 strategy. Why 3 million barrels? Why this number? This is not a random number, my friends. You know how much OPEC is reducing its production capacity? Yes, exactly 3 million barrels as well. Saudi Arabia reduced production by 1 million barrel. Russia reduced by close to another 1 million barrel, and the rest add up together to roughly 3 million barrel. So OPEC reducing the production by 3 million barrel and the US increased the production by 3 million. Do you think Scout want oil price to fall, to crash? To crash to, let's say, $20 a barrel? Do you think the energy giant is going to be happy about this? No, they're going to be very upset because the cost of production is around $30 a barrel here in the United States. You think Scott haven't thought about this? Of course he has. Because he probably predict what I'm predicting. That the price of oil will increase to $150 a barrel. That's why I said that Scott Bison shouldn't have said this in the first place. Because it is a warning signal that US next military operation and where it will be. It is a hint that US is going to make a move against Iran. And through that, shut down the entire Persian Gulf. That's why Scott need to increase the crude oil production by 3 million barrels. Alright, for people who do not understand the logic behind this, there's a certain supply and demand for oil, right? And when the OPEC reduce oil production, it usually means that there's a slightly decrease in demand as well. And when supply fall dramatically, okay, because of war, the price shoot up. And it's not even like a linear shoot up, it's usually exponential. US being one of the few producers of oil left on this planet, if, there's a huge war in Persian Gulf, and with other countries like Russia and Venezuela under heavy sanction, The US can monopolize the oil price and use it to strengthen US dollar against other currency. So pretty much the same with Ukraine war. By provoking the war in Ukraine by shutting down energy supply from Russia to Europe, it is literally an attack on the currency of euro and also rubles. This is why Professor Lu said scouts shouldn't have said it so early. It gave other countries like China a chance to prepare and put in countermeasures. Let's continue. For people who are familiar with the art of war, it is not an advantage for either party to enter prolonged war. The best scenario for the US is to end the war within 3 months. If the US invasion can lead to an internal revolution and a regime change, that will be the best case scenario for the United States. The war needs to be finished at most within 6 months. If it lasts more than 12 months, it can be problematic for both Israel and the United States. How will the Russian react to an Israel-US invasion of Iran? It is in Russia's advantage because Russia will want a higher oil price, and also it will take pressure away from Ukraine. So my personal take is Russia's effort in discouraging the war will be limited. What about China? How should China react to such an event? I think I'm going to stop here because my channel has been heavily censored by the authorities and I shouldn't say too much. Oh my god, a cliffhanger. We just got to the best part and he ended it there. Okay, my take is that Russia probably want US and Israel to make a move somewhere in the Middle East in a big way, perhaps against Iran, to offload some of the pressure in Ukraine. But of course, Russia will want US to trap itself in a long conflict in Iran and eventually lose. That's in Russia's interest and in China's interest as well. So today's China is openly backing Syria and Iran, but will it involve itself militarily? I don't think so. The logistic is not exactly in place, but there are other ways to support Iran. Professor Lu would draw a final conclusion to this video. Many people said Trump is going to be a peaceful president. I believe you guys are all wrong. Because if war is the best path to overcome the US crisis, Trump will not deny another war. During this sudden hike of oil price, if US can successfully collapse Euro, Japanese yen, British pound, Scott Bessent would have achieved his goal. There's an additional strategy on top of that. It's for US to swiftly vassalize Mexico and quickly industrialize Mexico and use it to complete a North America internal economic circulation. This is the only way US can reindustrialize successfully. It's basically turn Mexico into a complete economic vessel to replace China. So that's what Professor Lu said. The most direct and easiest way for US to reindustrialize is to militarily occupy Mexico and use it as a China substitute for supply chain. I mean, that sounds wild and ridiculous. Trump is not going to do that. Would he?
The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels. When I am president, it will be the policy of the United States to take down the cartels, just as we took down ISIS and the ISIS Caliphate. We will show no mercy on the cartels. Every day, drug traffickers are using the waters of our region to ship their lethal poisons to America, killing so many of our people and ruining families. In addition to restoring strong border security, I will deploy all necessary military assets, including the U.S. Navy, to impose the full naval embargo on the cartels. I did that before, and it worked. What we did was incredible. We will guarantee that the waters of the Western Hemisphere are not used to traffic illicit drugs to our country. Furthermore, I will order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. I will designate the major cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. We will sever their access to global financial systems. And remember, in Mexico alone, an estimated 100,000 civilians have been tragically murdered or gone missing at the hands of these cartels. The Mexican government, run by a very fine man, the president, is really working hard, but it's not working out. These cartels are vicious and they're violent, and they have Mexico for now stymied. Well, we have to help Mexico, and we have to stymie the cartels. Either we will get the full cooperation of other governments to stop this menace, or we will expose every bribe, every kickback, every payoff, and every bit of corruption that is allowing the cartels to preserve their brutal reign. And it is indeed brutal.